What is up, guys? It's so good to see you again. I'm really excited for this video because we are talking all about going to university, starting university mainly. So if you're going to university as a fresher, you're probably super excited. I'm also actually going to a new university from January, so I'm kind of getting into that mode too, to study law. And then also, if you're already at university, I think you'll find this video really helpful too, because it's full of kind of tips that I have from my experience of studying at Cambridge, mistakes that I made, and how you can avoid them. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of basically tell you, not a story, but give you my experience of my first term at Cambridge, and basically just talk to you honestly and frankly about how I felt by the end of it. To be honest, I was not literally obviously, but pretty much dead by the end of it. Like I genuinely was just so tired, so run down. You have so many pressures on you. You're gonna have kind of lots of different things going on, and it's so exciting and it was amazing, but at the same time also so draining because you're making new friends, you're in a totally different place, you're living on your own for the first time, probably for most of you. You're having to do some things for yourself. At Cambridge we didn't have to do too much for ourselves, we didn't have to cook really, but you're still having to do lots of things. You're having to go to Sainsbury's, you're having to do shopping, you're having to kind of manage lots of different things in a very different way for the first time. And so I think I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys honestly about that and how you can hopefully get to Christmas and feel still really happy and not be kind of too completely and utterly drained. So these kind of pieces of advice are basically to try and help avoid that, help you feel positive and just enjoy your time at university. Today I am going to be focusing on the kind of study aspect of university. I'm going to do another video, or maybe even two, on kind of more social aspects, on making friends, on Facebook groups, on kind of girlfriends, boyfriends, on all that kind of social aspect, cooking, what to take to university, all that stuff in another video. But today I really want to focus on what you can do now, both kind of mentally ahead of going to university and actually kind of in your preparation to get to university and kind of feel as on the ball and as up to date as kind of with it as you possibly can in terms of your studies. So I'm going to give you some tips. The number one tip, so this is my first tip, is definitely to kind of shift your attitude from being at school to being at university, and to understand that you're going to a place where you've done A-levels, where yes, it was difficult. A-levels are hard, but you were doing things quite systematically. You probably, it's not spoon feeding necessarily, but you have quite systematic answers. There are certain ways of doing things. Yes, you have to alter there depending on the question, but actually kind of it's fairly formulaic and you do things fairly superficially relative to university. And obviously going to university is it's a step up. It's very different. The tasks you're going to be doing are just different by nature. They're going to be much less regular to kind of homework. They're going to be longer in terms of essays. And so really I think the change in attitude that needs to happen is just first of all to know that it's okay to not do amazingly to start with. You're going into something completely different that you've never done before, and you're going to have much more time to kind of study privately. You just need to know that it's okay to find things difficult to start with. Things are going to be hard, it's going to take some time to get used to it, but hopefully this video will help you kind of avoid that. But change your attitude, be happy that you know that you're going to explore things in more depth, but that actually if you find things hard to start with, it's okay, it's not the end of the world. And then I just wanted to tell you quickly so this is a good example of exactly how university differs from school and how you can change your attitude to hopefully kind of do better to start with when you first get to university. So I remember everyone doing my subject in my college at Cambridge made pretty much the same mistake going into our first supervision. We were studying a French play called Phèdre. We had or most of us had read it, which was a start. A few people hadn't, but it was fine. Most people had read it, and we got given an essay to write. So we wrote the essay. We all thought we'd done we spent ages on it, thought we'd done pretty well, and took it and handed it in. And then when we got our feedback, so at Cambridge we have supervisions, which means you have kind of 2-on-1 sessions with the supervisor, with your professor. Lots of you won't have that, but this advice applies to no matter where you are, what subject you're doing. And the first thing he said in our supervision was, and this our French kind of professor was pretty strict, kind of very French style teacher, and he just said, "So what is at stake here? What is Fêtre based on? Where does it come from? What is it?" And sorry, I can't resist in the French accent. That's pretty much how he sounds. It's pretty good for me. No, and the point was that Fêtre is based on kind of Greek tragedy. It's a play that comes from those roots and is an adaptation of that kind of basis. So we'd all written our essay going through the themes and the tropes and the kind of the ideas in Phèdre, and we'd done a little bit of background reading, included a few references, and thought that was amazing. But what we hadn't done is taken a step back. We hadn't said actually what is going on here. And I think this applies to any subject you're doing, whether it's medicine, whether it's law, whether it's languages, but whatever it is, taking a step back and saying, actually, what are the roots of this? Why was this work even written, for example? Or why was this law passed? Or what was the thinking behind this? What is the model it's based on? What existed before it? All of these questions that at A-level or whatever exams you took, kind of when you're 18, you have a superficial coverage from school, and you don't really delve into those kind of searching questions, and you just accept things and you write a great essay on themes and tropes and ideas, but without a real understanding of what the point of all of those things is. And so I think that's my number one tip in terms of kind of change in attitude. First of all, yes, it's okay, you're not going to do everything perfectly first time. It's going to take some time to get used to it. And second of all, get out of that mindset of thinking kind of superficially. Instead, ask what is at stake. Why does this happen? What is going on? You need to get a firm understanding, and if that doesn't come across in your essay or your piece of work, you're not going to do kind of better than a low 2-1. And that, I think, is actually the key to many university essays. So I hope that helps in terms of kind of just shifting your attitude towards kind of how you need to think at university. Okay, so let's talk about what you can do from now over the end of the summer until you go to university and when you first get there to kind of be as prepared as you possibly can in terms of your studies. Number one thing is two things I think you can do. Number one is to go over stuff you did last year. Summer is a long time, kind of lots of things exit your brain during that time, exit your short-term memory from your exams. So you need to go over your notes. If you do French, for example, look over your French grammar, get that kind of nailed down. Just look over for a few hours a day for a week or two. If you do maths, similarly, look over your A-level syllabus. No matter what subject you do, just have a firm kind of grounding in your A-level if you did one in the subject you're going to study. And I think that's really important because it means that when you go to your first few lectures, you don't feel behind, you feel really on top of things, you feel like you know what's going on. And also, actually, lots of kind of the start of kind of term lectures might be refresher stuff from A-level. And so being there, knowing that you already know this stuff will just ease you in kind of that much more smoothly into university life, rather than going in having kind of feeling slightly behind already. You're already behind the kind of steam of other people who have looked at this stuff and help you feel really on top of stuff. Number two is then once you've done that to start kind of doing some reading. If you do, for example, a literature subject, make sure that you're reading the books that are going to be studied next term. You have to do it. If, for example, you study a language, it's okay to take some shortcuts. You can look up one kind of chapter summary for one chapter and then read the next chapter. You can read one chapter in French, one chapter in English. That gives you an idea across different subjects. You know, don't read everything, but try and get on with some of that reading, some of that understanding. Again, just so you feel on top of things. On top of that, I think it's really a great idea to start doing some introductory reading around your subject. So the best example I can give again is from my subject. If I take French, first of all, Wikipedia is a great source. for introductory understanding. Professors hate it, they'll say don't use it, and I agree to some extent. You can't take Wikipedia as kind of the Bible, and if you use it as your kind of sole source of your essays, you're going to get nowhere. But actually, to have a look at Wikipedia on, for example, the different artistic movements in France over the whole of the kind of from 1500 onwards, that will be a really helpful thing, because you'll be able to see, just have a general overview of the different periods. Or for medicine, if your first term module is on anatomy, to have a look at some of the kind of general background stuff behind, just to get some general understanding. I think that's a really, really kind of useful tool to use as the first kind of point of contact. Then look at your reading list, look for some introductory works, and start having a look through them. And that really brings me on to, I guess, my third tip, which is how to read. You need to know how to read at university level. So when you're reading these introductory works, I would recommend that you kind of have a pen and paper or your laptop and start taking some notes. You don't have to read everything. Know that. Please do not read everything from start to end, or else you're going to be kind of here doing your first year course in 2030. There's just no way you can kind of get through everything that's ever been written on a subject. And even introductory works can be hundreds of pages long, so don't kind of get bogged down in them. Take a look through them, see what you think is going to be most relevant, most interesting, and kind of focus on those little bits. So, how do you read? First of all, scan through kind of whatever it is you're reading. If it's an introductory work, look through the kind of chapters, look through the different chapters, what are the chapter titles, what sounds most interesting. And then I would recommend reading the introduction to introductory works. So in pretty much every book ever, there is some kind of introduction. I would recommend reading that, because actually it's a great place to start. And often what that will do is give you some kind of broad ideas that you can then go into much more depth on yourself. So don't read one work, because you could read one kind of chapter even of a book that could be 10,000 words, and that would be enough to write kind of 2 of your essays on. Actually, what you're better off doing is reading an introduction, getting some general ideas from that introduction, and also looking at other works that are linked to, that are kind of referenced within that introduction. So I'll give you an example. If you've got an introductory work on Phèdre, let's say, which is the book that I first studied when I went to Cambridge, I looked through the introduction, it gives me a general overview of kind of the work. It would also probably have told me all about Greek tragedy and kind of where it came from, which would have saved a lot of problems. It also would then give me some kind of key ideas to look into in more depth. And most crucially, it would probably reference other works that have already been written on Phèdre, so that I could then say, oh, actually this book by Tom Smith, which he's quoted in his introduction to Phèdre, looks really interesting. Actually, he seems like he has some interesting ideas on whatever the topic is. So I'll look into that in more depth. Note that down in my notes, and then it becomes almost, if you think of like Wikipedia, you have one article that you read, and it has links to everywhere else. And I think thinking of your studies like that at university is a really good way to start. If you get reading some introductory kind of works, look for the kind of key stuff, some interesting ideas, some stuff that you find interesting, to get a general overview. But also note down kind of references to other works that are maybe more specific, that you might be able to use over the course of the year to write essays in preparation for exams. And I think one last point on reading, and this is, if you're going to take one thing away from this video, please let it be this. My top tip is, when you're taking your notes, please write down the reference of where you're kind of taking your notes from as you do it. So there is nothing worse than having written loads of notes, you're writing your essay on the basis of those notes, and you think, oh, this is a great idea, this is a really good quotation from someone. I don't know who wrote that because I haven't written the reference for it, and I wish that now I had. And you then spend 3 hours trying to look through everything that you've ever read, looking for this one quotation so that you can reference it possibly properly in your essay. make sure that when you find an idea from Tom Smith and he says, this is a really interesting book, you write, this is a really interesting book, Tom Smith, the date of the work that it's from, or the title of the work, and the page number. You'll then be able to find it really easily when you come back. You can look up Tom Smith in more detail, all that kind of stuff. And that's probably my number one tip, is that it's a massive change from school to university to do that. And that will make such a big difference and save you so much time. Okay, so my final tip, and this is the big one. I spoke briefly in this video about kind of how I felt at the end of my first year at Cambridge, tired, run down, all of those things. And I think that the reason for lots of that was just because I put so much pressure on myself. I had an amazing time. I met so many good friends that are still my friends now. I kind of went out quite a bit. I joined the football team, played football, enjoyed that, played lots of different sport, did my work, enjoyed my course. You know, like, so much was going well. But actually, I think everything I was doing, I was just putting pressure on myself. You know, I wasn't giving myself time to relax. And actually, I got a bad stomach. I ended up actually going to see a psychologist at the end of my first year at university because I was so kind of run down about it. And I think my number one piece of advice, other than to take note of your kind of references when you make them, is what my psychologist said to me, which is that I needed to shift my attitude again from feeling like downtime, like relaxation when I was at university, was a waste of time. Like, I wanted to do stuff all the time. I was so excited to be there. I felt pressure from myself to do well. I really wanted to succeed so badly. I wanted to make friends. I wanted to do everything. But actually, I wasn't allowing myself just to have an afternoon off when I was feeling run down, to watch TV, to see friends, to chill out completely and take my mind off of everything. And I think that's so, so important. Like, that's the one piece of advice I'm going to leave you with. Sorry, this video's gone on way longer than I hoped it would, or than I thought it would, but hopefully you found it useful. My number one piece of advice that I'm going to leave you with for starting university, or whether you're already at university or whatever, actually whoever you are, is just to know that downtime is such an important ingredient of being productive. Because rather than seeing it as like wasted time, you need to see it as kind of a necessary component of being productive the rest of the time. Because if you have downtime and if you allow your mind to kind of fully escape study, escape everything, and you allow kind of yourself to truly relax during that time, you're going to be just so much more focused when you are studying, rather than sitting at a desk for 8 hours being fairly productive but actually not quite as productive as you might be. Spend 6 hours at your desk and spend 2 hours just having so much fun, enjoying yourself, getting outside, seeing friends, talking to friends, binge watching 2 hours of Netflix, whatever it is that just truly allows you to relax. Let yourself do that. Know it's okay to do that. And to be honest, I think that will just help you enjoy your university experience so much more. So, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do leave a comment below. Let me know what university you're going to. Are you excited? Have you found this video helpful? Like it. Please do subscribe to my channel. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing you again soon. As I say, I'm going to do another video on kind of preparing for university, but from a more social, cooking, all that kind of stuff angle. So yeah, I will see you then. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye.